This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Open Line. Brian Callahan with you to finish off the week, and David Williams, of course, producing the show. The numbers to call in the St. John's metro area, 709-273-5211. Should be able to ring them off now and by memory in the St. John's metro region. Elsewhere, 1-888-590-VOCM. That's 8626. And we can take your emails too, and your texts as well. openline@vocm.com. Dave working like a bee back there behind the glass today. Thank you, Dave. And you know, I say happy Friday or TGIF, but I am, don't worry, acutely aware of the fact that there are many, many more of us out there working well beyond the Monday to Friday grind. With 1, 2, maybe 3 other gigs on the side to make ends meet, or just to give yourself a little buffer from the bills, the heat bills particularly this time of year, and tax season, dare I say. Okay, enough of that. Bit of sports off the top, of course, before we get to the heavy stuff. So yes, the official start of the 25th Winter Olympiad is this afternoon. The opening ceremonies are this afternoon. Due to start around 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon, our time here in Newfoundland. With the 4.5 hours time difference, of course, the extra half hour for Labrador. Going to feature, let's see, Italian tenor Andrea Bocelli, appropriately enough, of course, happening mostly in the northern recesses of Italy, of course, the games, and pop star Mariah Carey. Apparently, they've been keeping her thawed out for this today, and then they'll refreeze her until next Christmas again. Canada's co-flag bearers, they're 3-time Olympic medalist in moguls Michael Kingsbury and 2-time Olympic medalist in ski cross Marielle Thompson. Disappointing news, though, right out of the gate for snowboarder Mark McMorris, who was supposed to compete in the big air event last night. First real big TV part of this, before the opening ceremonies tomorrow. I was looking forward to a bit of that. But he crashed in a training run on Wednesday. Harkens back to Lindsey Vonn, of course, the American downhill skier who also had a crash before. And they say this is par for the course. They all do training runs in the run up to the Olympics. The risks are always there. McMorris reportedly, of course, is doing okay now. Saw an interview last night with him where he said his head was he hit his head. That's all he would really get into. So we know we know where that goes. So I don't think they have blue tents like they do, say, for the NFL on the sidelines, but I'd say he's probably under a bit of what they may say concussion protocol if he's referring to a head injury. So whether or not he's done for the games, we shall see. There was also, of course, the cancellation of Canada's first women's hockey game against Finland. After most of their team of Finland came down with the bout of norovirus. So in the interests of their health and not spreading it around to either their own teammates, staff, it could be anybody could be touched by that. So, or the opposition, of course. So that's been rescheduled to next Thursday. And that's a day before the quarters are about to begin. The next day, actually, the quarters begin next Friday. So no rest day there, which you'd normally have before you get into the elimination round. And the Finns are good, by the way. Not like the old days of just the Canada-U.S. dominance. So we all know, if you've been following it at all, we know that the other countries have come up to our level. And, of course, there is representation from this province in Milano Cortina. The physiotherapist, of course, originally from Kings Cove, Bonavista Bay, is among them, Miriam Lewis. She was on your VOCM Mornings course morning, and so that's a great story. She's working with the Canadian speed skating team. And we have some idea of the physical challenges there, the physical demands, the fitness required for that sport. So she's got her hands full. Great story there. Local connection. And, of course, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. The Pats and the Seahawks. I'm all over that. If you want to talk some gridiron, some pigskin, and all the different dynamics that go with that. The Big Bunny performance at halftime may even upstage the actual game, but we'll see where all that goes. Okay. Let's get into some news. A few topics you may or may not want to voice your thoughts on. Again, if I don't mention one that's top of mind for you, let me or Dave know. You know the drill. So yesterday, Premier Tony Wakeham, as we discussed on the show yesterday, met with media to reminisce, if you will, over the new PC government's first 100 days in power, talking, about the ongoing the liberal ideas that he says were just that. ideas. No real costing or planning, just a lot of announcements, such as the now axed new hospital at Kenmount Crossing, and on it goes. The question remains, of course, a lot of lofty promises to be fulfilled to get to the point of better health care, safer communities, lower taxes. And on the taxes, the Premier did mention again that the major tax cut is coming that would raise the province's basic personal income tax exemption to your first $15,000. So, that'll definitely make a difference for a lot of people. There are other elements to all of this, and we have put in a call to the Premier. We haven't had him on the show this week. I know he's done a little couple of media, but of course, it'd be nice to hear from him at the end of this week. A lot's been going on, a lot on his plate, different meetings, a lot on the plate. That's just the understatement of the century. So there's a lot of meat on that bone, and the opposition, of course, Liberals and NDP, quick to oppose the moves thus far, not the least of which, of course, is putting the Churchill Falls MOU on hold pending further review. Still no word on what the question might be in a referendum on that deal. Premier has said he hasn't really given it any thought and can't and won't until he hears back from the independent review that's ongoing. Some would say it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you're not going to get into a real technical question about decision gates and stuff, so it's probably going to be a very straightforward yes or no based on the information that's available. And that information could be the whole MOU, which many of us wouldn't know from Adam. So it's going to be interesting how they massage that question so that it really gives a proper context and reflection of the issue at hand and how important it is to our province. And meanwhile, on a side note, and these kind of distraction things never help communication nor just who knows what it's all about, but the government is now being taken to task, of course, for an ad that, regardless of where you stand or sit, bears remarkable resemblance, there's no denying that, to one put out by the MAGA Republicans in the United States. And it's just a fact. You can view this on our website if this is the first you're hearing about it. The VOCM ad and the U.S. ad, the Republican ad, side by side. If you've seen it, it's on our if you haven't seen it, it's on our website. Same colors, same layout, same word font, same wording. Only one difference really there. It's promises made, promises kept, and the only difference that I can see from the MAGA ad is promises is plural, while for the MAGA ad, and while the Tories here in the provincial government's ad is singular. So promise made, promise kept. No real difference there except the letter. So if you've seen them, it's hard to deny that they're quite similar. And I mean, coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to pass judgment. I'd love to hear from the Premier. I'd love to hear from anyone at all with the provincial government who'd like to speak to this. I'll leave it for you to decide, but I can tell you the NDP's Jim Dinn is decided, doesn't think it's a coincidence, and has said as much. And of course, we're hoping to speak with Mr. Dinn this morning on that. Your thoughts, of course, are welcome on it as well. After you have a gawk at it, I see some saying it's much ado about nothing. That may well be. But, your eyes do not deceive. So, and I mentioned yesterday the new National Automobile Strategy, of course, which has kind of upstaged the new direction that the feds were taking on the housing front, namely the Crown getting into the business of buying land to create affordable housing, actually purchasing the land himself in concert with private developers. Like critics say right away that it lacks timelines, benchmarks, targets, other critical details. Again, your thoughts are welcome on the new housing strategy in concert with the new National Automobile Strategy. And we can go back at that as well on the EV strategy. It very much feels like the country and Mr. Carney is, it's a chess game with the United States. They know that Trump has said, drill, baby, drill. He's still got his eye on oil and not on green or EVs. So it seems like a strategy to go that route and get ahead of something that Trump doesn't have any interest in or doesn't seem to like. Maybe it's a great strategy. Who knows? Seems clever. There's so many angles to this of what we're trying to do to offset the effects of tariffs. You can tell they're hard at work at it, and we'll see where it all goes. Your thoughts are welcome. And the love-in, of course, continued yesterday for former PM Stephen Harper in Ottawa yesterday. It was actually today, 22 years ago today, that he was sworn in as Canada's 22nd Prime Minister. And he's getting rave reviews right now about all over that in Ottawa. Praise coming from all sectors, but, the unity message that he's been sending, suggesting we park partisan politics for now in the name of unity, amidst, of course, the changing global landscape, i.e. Trump. But it's all pretty awkward, really, for the current leader of the federal Conservatives, don't you think, for Pierre Poilievre? With Harper basically saying, ease off, don't be the opposition for a while. And here he is trying to write straight out of the leadership convention last week, 87% approval rate, trying to make his mark, trying to find a way to oppose at a time when, so many people are on board with what the new Liberal government is doing as opposed to what the former Liberal government were doing. And don't forget, while the love-in is going on up along, Harper was the one who appointed PM Carney, Prime Minister Carney, to his position as Bank of Canada governor back in the day when he was Prime Minister. Food for thought there. And that's all fine up along, keeping in mind that it was Harper who famously said there was this culture of defeat in Atlantic Canada, which got all the headlines and, of course, got all of our backs up for very good reason, saying we'd rather be on EI, but suggestion of laziness and not really, no eye on the prize, no effort, no encouragement, no desire to, work. And also remember that it was Harper who spurred the ABC campaign by former Premier Danny Williams, which led to the feds being shut out, Tories being shut out in this province for years, all because of the changes Harper made, whether it was to the Atlantic Accord. I remember covering an election rally at Harper's election rally at the Delta, and questioning him on all that, and boy, did he ever do a dance, especially being here on the ground. The CETA deal, of course, under Harper, and the $400 million trade-off of our fish resources, that's still fresh in the mind for many people. Removal of minimum processing rules, again, seen to placate our EU neighbours, when it came to what they wanted from our waters, which they've taken for years and years and years, not to mention the closure of the Marine Rescue Centre in St. John's. And a big shout out to Merv Wiseman on that front. Merv, if you're listening, good morning and happy Friday. So your thoughts on the former PM are most certainly welcome. And, of course, there's a ton of other news. There's just no way to get around it. Following the story, of course, the Toronto police officers charged in that tow truck criminal activities investigation. Some most unsettling, a lot of people talking about just the thought of hearing news reports of police officers basically putting their other members who they work with at risk, giving out, leaking information, addresses of officers, doing investigations and this sort of thing. The allegations are brutal. But now the debate has raised, of course, again, of whether or not these officers should be suspended with or without pay. It's often hard enough just to find out if they've been one way or the other. Been my experience, especially when there's officers in this province that have been in any issue, any trouble with the law, any charges laid, because they immediately will point to the HR issues, human resources, privacy. Can't say. But over time it comes out, and fortunately over the years, whether it's been issues down at HMP or whatever, the union has been there to note and give us some insight into that as to whether or not. But trying to decide when, and right now the most serious criminal offenses are usually followed by suspensions without pay. But it is murky, to say the least. It's just not clear. And it seems to be inconsistent from one charge or one offense to the next. This one, though, may put that much more into the spotlight and make it more of a, it is. It's certainly in the public interest to know, to what extent the presumption of innocence or guilt before this is tried in court. So your thoughts on that, suspended with or without? And more allegations of hockey hazing in Nova Scotia. 3 teens charged now in an incident there. All I can do is just throw these out now because the time we've seen the PET scanner for the West Coast, the controversy now over whether the provincial government, initially the new health minister, Leila Evans, had said it wasn't purchased, they're putting it on hold and that sort of thing. And lo and behold, we find out that the purchase order did go through and it's in the queue. And so, I get it. Early days, new government, new minister, getting used to it, but it's been, 5-6 months now. So, and something like that, such a big issue, especially, the importance of this to the West Coast, the Corner Brook Hospital, the new Corner Brook Hospital, and all the talk about that PET scanner, not to know for sure and not to be on the same page as to the status of that PET scanner. Your thoughts are welcome. And somebody mentioned me, I haven't been talking much about Epstein. Well, who really wants to? But the plot thickens in that, and I'll just briefly touch on it. As much as Trump and others want it to go away, and there's lots of shiny objects they've been throwing at us to make that happen, whether it's the Venezuela situation, the Greenland situation, the tariffs, all these different things that'll be thrown at you to take away from things they don't want to talk about. It is the disturbing disgusting gift of a story that keeps on going as far as media goes. More allegations against Prince Andrew now. He had suggested the famous photo of him and his accuser with his arm around her waist and the big smile and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. He was suggesting that might have been doctored or somehow changed or whatever somehow. Well, that's been proven false now as well through old emails showing that it was an original photo. So give it up, man. I'd say time has come and gone. And last thing I'm just going to quickly mention, if you've noticed, I saw a story last night as well on gold. Gold's through the roof. I mentioned this earlier in the week. It's the constant. It is now, it still continues to hover around $5,000 an ounce. Some prognosticators expect it could go as high as $8,000 or something before, I don't know if they want to call it a bubble bursting, but before it comes down to earth maybe. But, the local jewelry stores are out there saying, bring us your gold. I don't know what to think about, the enticing it. I mean, we know there was just a armed robbery in Churchill Square of a jewelry store. So while the value of it goes up and that's great for business, it's also got the dollar signs in the eyes of the ne'er-do-wells and the ones who would like to take you for everything you're worth, and that's just something we can talk about. And last but not least, happy birthday to Gord Downey. There was a time on the show when Paddy would be able to end his preamble with a little tune. I would love to play a little bit of the Tragically Hip today, but we'll just say good morning to a true Canadian hero. Miss ya. And see you on the other side of the note, on the other side of the sod. Dave, I got a ton of other stuff, but I'm looking at the clock and I've gone on, droning on here now for long enough. Let's take our first break in the morning. A couple of calls in the queue. We're going to talk to Michael King and with the MHA for Burjo Lapoil and Annette on Seniors Income right after the break. All right, welcome back to the program. Let's get the show rolling with Annette on line one. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm okay. Thanks very much. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm okay, I guess. I'm 1 year away from being homeless, but hey, what government doesn't care about that? I wanted to talk to you about the seniors' income because it's next to nothing. It's unbelievable that all the issues that are going on, but there's no mention of helping out the seniors at all. For instance, I am a disability recipient because I'm a cancer patient. And right now, the provincial government and the federal government did increase a disability tax benefit, which added another $600 to my income. However, when you get 65, that is no more. You lose it. So I don't know what they think you're going to do when you're 65 with $1,200 a month. I don't understand. Plus, I go from disability CPP to regular CPP, which means I'm going to lose another $300. So we're looking at a $900 decrease in my income next year.
I guess from one side, do you have any hope? I mean, that the 20% increase to help that the Premier, that the provincial government has promised in the upcoming budget will give you any consolation or any help?
I'm not holding out for that. That might happen, might not. I have to deal with reality, not promises, because, what am I going to do? I have a house. I have a small mortgage. I have to look at either going into housing, which I don't want to do. I don't want to leave my home. I'm sick on top of it.
Do you live alone in it?
No, my husband is here, but he is on disability as well because he has a mental illness that he's been dealing with for years. And he's getting next to nothing because he was so young when he got sick. So right now, I'm going to have to leave my home once I turn 65 because we're looking at $1,000 less a month. Who can afford that?
Yeah, no, taking a chunk of that out of any income that all of a sudden you did have, especially today, is just making a real bad situation a lot worse. I look at the list of benefits, the federal benefits, the provincial benefits, whether it's OAS, it's guaranteed income supplement, whether it's the Newfoundland Seniors Benefit, the income supplement, the Aging Well at Home grant, which is supposed to be $400, I think, annually for services like snow clearing or groceries, but that won't help you with your rent. And then there's care.
Once a year.
Do you qualify for the care? Yes, it is annually. Yeah. Do you qualify for the caregiver benefit?
What is that? No, I don't. No, I know. No, that's because my husband is sick. I mean, I need someone to care for me, so I can't care for him.
Okay. I mean, your MHA can also, somebody, close to you, an MHA, or there are plenty of organizations, seniors organizations as well, that can help you with what you may be eligible for. But you would know your own personal circumstance, and if $1,000 is coming out of... Yep. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I've been researching everything, and it's just, like, I never thought that I would get to be 65, so I didn't have to worry about this. And, I've been battling cancer for 14 years. And now that it's a privilege for me to become 65, I'm actually dreading it.
And the fact that you that's really about as sad as a thought that you could have, and it just speaks to the situation you're in, that you would feel like, look, I won't have to worry about it, I'm not going to make it that far. And here you have, and you would think there would be something there. I mean, without quality of life, I can see why you'd have that feeling. Absolutely, why anyone would.
Absolutely.
But it can't get to the it should never get, of course, to the point of despair, which is a situation that so many people are in right now. At least I think the only thing that I heard from you just then was, I mean, it may be so small, minute consolation, but you have time. You have a year, do you not?
I have a year, yes, I have a year.
And that's more than a lot of people have, hey? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Once I turn 64, now next month, I have to start applying for my seniors old age security, OAS. I don't even know the amount I'm going to get, because it's based on, different things, right? But it's just that you work all your life. I worked for 30 years. I got sick and fought to get to 65, which I didn't even think I would get to. And here I am. I'm 1 year away from being homeless.
And what did you work at, if you don't mind me prying into it?
A nurse.
You worked as a nurse for the provincial government?
Yes.
Well, this will, even get more backs up, because, the work that you've done, and we all talk about the contribution that healthcare workers make to our province. It is a sad state of affairs where you can't be comfortably taken care of in your elder years, illness or no illness. Have you filed your taxes yet, or who does your taxes for you?
I do them, and no, I haven't yet, because I haven't gotten any T4s.
And I only mention that. Yeah, I only mention that because your picture of what you're eligible for and your OAS amounts and all that are coming to you would probably be a lot clearer for somebody who reviews all your situation, your finances, what you're eligible for. It sounds like a great time for you to do that. We had the CEO of the Professional Chartered Accountants of Newfoundland and Labrador on yesterday, talking about the free clinics they have all around the city here, for one, in the metro area. Free service to go in and get your taxes done. I mean, now I just want to make sure the eligibility. It's for the free side of it. It's 40. Okay, so it's 40,000 income or less. So if you're in that salary range or that money range, or that's your income, if you're not over 40 grand, you'll qualify for this, or if you're a senior. But
I'm not even 30 grand, Brian.
Yeah. So look, you should. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. You should probably avail of this. At least you'd get a clearer picture of what your financial situation might look like, what you're eligible for. You're about to come up. There's so many uncertainty, and there's so many different pots of money. You need to be able to talk to someone who is much more versed in it than I am. And I hear people shouting at the radio, yeah, Paddy would know. And he probably would. I just wish I had more time to dig into it. But that would be my suggestion right off the top of my head.
Yes, and thank you. That is what I'm planning on doing. That was my plan. It's just I want government to hear that the seniors are suffering, not only me. Like, my dad, for instance, is 90, okay? He lives alone in an apartment. He has home care, and he's got to pay $400 a month. Like, his rent is like $1,200.
And how is he getting by with that? What's,
He's thank God he's got a good Canada pension, because he worked. He 9 years old, he was on the Grand Banks in a dory fishing. He moved on to he bettered himself by going back to school and becoming an engineer. And he worked all of his life. And yet, when he turned 65, lo and behold, there wasn't enough. Like, thank God he had saved enough and he's got extra earnings. But, I mean, he worked so hard, and now here you are. You're in poverty.
Through no fault. Yep, sorry.
Through no fault of his own. Yes, that's right. Because government is not giving seniors enough money to live, not only live comfortably, but just survive. I mean, I was at the mall last winter, and I had to end up buying coffee and muffins for several seniors there, because they were down there trying to stay warm, because they could only have one room in their home open and everything else was shut down because they couldn't afford the light bill. So they had to choose between heating their home and eating.
And Annette, I know this for a fact, and I got to get off to the break. I'll give you another comment. I know this for a fact. It's not just seniors going to the mall to stay warm. It's not just seniors closing off the rest of their house that they're not using to keep the warmth in one particular area. Everybody is looking at their heat bill and trying to find a way to reduce it. And then when it spikes throughout, despite all those efforts, it gets people's backs up. Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. And seniors disproportionately are affected. But given the times we're in, and the cost of living, and the cost of food, and the cost of everything, and this time, the dead of winter, it's just all magnified. And it's more than just seniors going through it, but that is, our most vulnerable should be the most protected.
That's exactly right, Brian. You're right.
And
okay, so I'll let you go. Sorry.
I wish you nothing but the best. I really appreciate the call. These calls are so important. There's so many other people nodding along, agreeing with what you're saying, how important it is to say it, because sometimes you just have to say it over and over before you finally get someone's attention. So, Annette, I appreciate that.
I just hope somebody's listening.
They are. Oh, they're listening. Even if they weren't planning to listen to your call this morning, they're listening. And now that you have called, you got them.
Okay.
It's only so long they can ignore these sorts of things. Yeah. And thanks again.
Just before I go, you're doing a fabulous job.
I appreciate it. That's all subjective opinion, trust me. But I really I appreciate it very much. And look, I wish you and your husband nothing but the best. As I've said, and Patty's always said, we always say, when we get a call like yours, just keep us posted on how things go and how things turn out. And I hope you can find what you need within the next year. Okay, that's Annette. Thanks very much. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, let's take that break. Back with Michael King. And welcome back to the show. Right to line number 2. And Michael King, the Liberal MHA for Burgeo-Lapoille. You're on the air.
Hey, Brian. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. All things considered.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, buddy.
After all.
Pardon?
It's Friday after all.
It is, and as I said off the top, Friday for some. We always bear in mind, you used to be able to say TGIF to everybody, but now you have to sort of second guess, and people might just not. They look at you kind of funny. Yeah, well, I got to work tomorrow too, so.
Absolutely. No, Brian, I wanted to call in this morning to chat about the recent government's decision to terminate the MOU with the National Marine Conservation Area.
Yeah, I think you may have termed it short-sighted, to say the least.
Yes, it's very disappointing to see them stop this process. Brian, this was a community-led initiative more than 20 years ago. It wasn't something a provincial government or a federal government came down and said, this is what we wanted to do. This was the community getting together to look at options, creative, outside-of-the-box thinking to say, what can we do to address, economic sustainability and long-term viability for the community in the future? This process was underway. And they've, made a short-sighted, in my decision, and non-fact-based decision to terminate this process.
Yeah, I mean, the issue here for me, Michael, of course, is, and for the town and Burgeo specifically, it's just the immediacy of funding, federal funding that's available to expand on this protected area and the opportunities that come immediately, or in a sense immediately, as opposed to the uncertainty that comes with the reason they want to opt out for the potential for development of any industry. And we saw what happened with the GH2. Some of these things can be very short-sighted, even by people like John Risley, when they have these great ideas. Even the billionaires of the world sometimes get ahead of themselves, and now that's shelved, and they're looking at different areas of data centers and that sort of thing. But I think for the town, the work was done on this, and it's just, for me, it's the suddenness, the lack of consultation, the lack of meetings, the lack of making sure everybody's on the same page to limit at least the amount of uncertainty and blowback that you get with these kind of decisions. They had to see it coming, and you think in this day and age, you'd get out in front of these things and try to head it off at the pass, but it's just blown up unnecessarily in many ways for me.
You're absolutely right there. And, just one, part of this was, looking at the Sandbanks Provincial Park. That was going to become a tertiary park under the national park, That would have seen significant investment dollars into the Sandbanks Parks, for marketing, promoting, investments in the site as itself, to welcome more visitors. I mean, tourism is a significant part of rural Newfoundland and Labrador now. Like I mentioned, we're trying to be creative with addressing economic growth and sustainability for our communities, and they lean into tourism a lot. So that was a big part of that as well. And, that's all gone now. And, not letting this process through, I know there was a lot of concerns about this process, and there was a lot more collaboration, a lot more conversations to be had, but we didn't get an opportunity. You look at another MOU that's on the radar for the government right now, they had to slow down. They had to gather more information. They needed to get all the facts. Why was that process not applied to this? And they changed, made a different decision. So it's very, very unfortunate, and I'm deeply disappointed in the government. Yeah,
I'll be a bit of the devil's advocate on that one, only to say that, two MOUs are not alike. There's so many other issues, other irons in the fire. We know the historic Quebec issue. I get your point. Yes, two MOUs. One, no, we're going to need more review, and we're going to, vet it to death. The other one, no, that's gone out the window. I see your point, but I would hesitate, certainly on my end, to draw the immediate comparison. The similarities they're both two different animals, but the point is made. And it just, again, I go back to the immediacy of funding, but Sandbanks is a great example. And I guess my question for you is, is the old, can't we chew gum and whistle or walk at the same time? Can they not? Isn't there a way to massage both? I mean, there are advantages to both of these things, but it just seems like they just want to do a full reset. I mean, can they do both?
In the park sense, you mean?
Just in the entire aspect of it. I mean, we know it's a specifically protected area under that MOU, and I've looked through it, and without getting into the delineation of the boundaries and all that sort of thing. I mean, we know how it would affect, the various types of, marine life and all the environment. We know all that, but is there a way to do both, in concert with each other? Does it have to be one or the other throughout the process, as opposed to just the park or just the area?
Yeah, no, and I think coexistence is itself, when it comes back to industry, we hear a lot from the industry, and Brian, I've spoken to many harvesters in my district as well from that perspective, and I think coexistence could have existed, in many parts. I think the park itself was tied to the NMCA, so I'm not sure if that
right.
go ahead or not. That's something that we will explore going forward now, obviously, in next steps in collaboration with the towns. But, on the industry perspective, I know, I listened to a number of calls this week. There were a lot of concerns. And was the process perfect up to this point? No. Was there improvements to be made? Absolutely. But that didn't get the opportunity to see the full light, to have all the facts laid out on the table, to have a full display of what it looked like for the future. And, if this had a significant impact on harvesters in my district, for example, no, I probably would not have supported it, and I don't think others would have supported it. But we did not get the chance to see that through and to see if coexistence could have happened, which I think was possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we don't know that always drives me nuts. We never know the whole situation. That's one of the reasons I love covering court. Eventually, I get to the bottom of it. I get the truth. But, government has reasons. There are reasons, of course, cabinet and issues and all that sort of thing. But, as much transparency on this before just the axe fell would have been a lot helpful. Listen, Michael, we'll be discussing this I know in the short and near future and long-term future, I'm sure. I don't think this is going away anytime soon. Quick question, though. First-time MHA. Must be pumped to get in the House in early March. How you feeling?
I'm very excited to get in the House Assembly, Brian. I have a very steep politics background, so that's usually where my spark comes from. So I'm very excited to have the first opportunity to get in there and to bring up these issues and many issues that are facing my district. I've had a lot of conversations during the campaign and since I've been elected on issues that are important to the people of my district, and that's my number one job as their MHA, is to get in there, hold government accountable, and to support them in advocating for their issues and concerns.
And people talk about the big shoes in this show. I would suggest coming out of Andrew Parsons' shoes in that district, you've got a little bit of work to do yourself. Catch up to that.
Certainly, and I'm looking forward to carving my own path for sure.
Absolutely. Michael King, the Liberal MHA for Burgeo-Lapoille. I appreciate the time. Thanks for the call. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Brian. You too, and I look forward to having more conversations on this. This is not finished for me, the town of Burgeo, and we look forward to having more conversations, as I said.
Yeah, not finished for a lot of people. Thanks again.
Take care.
Thank you. You too. All right, Dave, let's take that break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program for this Friday morning. Let's go right to line number one. And Laurel Bell Emba, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Morning.
Long time no talk.
Long time no chat. So I'm calling in to talk about the provincial government's half-assed response to Black History Month.
Okay, tell me how you really feel.
That's the kind way to say it, Brian. I'm livid and absolutely livid with it. Because in January, I had reached out to the provincial government on 2 separate occasions, letting them know as a new Conservative government that people were going to have higher expectations for them, especially considering they had hired Steve Outhouse to help with the transition team. Black History Month is a nonpartisan issue. And to now we are over a week into it, to see them pull what they're calling acknowledgement, which is taking the pictures from Minister Paddock's post about an event that happened last week, posting it 7 minutes after 8 this morning, after being called out for not having anything over the last week, but still managing to reparrot Republican posts in terms of the graphics being used for their 100 days in office, and putting together a half-assed response.
So you're kind of, it's the issue, of course, being more reactionary than proactionary.
Absolutely.
And it just, as an afterthought, is that kind of, now that they've been called out, what kind of communication and have you had with the new government since they took office, if any?
None. I ran into Minister Paddock at the Lieutenant Governor's Black History Month celebration, and that was the first interaction I've had with anyone in the new government. I had sent multiple emails to them in January, just being very kind, being like, here's a full proposal. You don't have to work with me, but please do something, because people will be watching to see how you act as a new government, especially considering when Premier VOCM ran, he ran as for us all. And I don't know who us is if we can't address a nonpartisan issue with something as simple as Black History Month, which is 30 years being celebrated in this country, but not 30 years in this province.
Yeah,
so I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 30 years exactly back to 2006. In Canada. Yeah, sorry. 30 years of Black History Month with the theme. of honoring black brilliance across generations, the nation builders of tomorrow. But it's still not clear. So there's been no communication, email-wise or anything like that? Because a quick search, if I do a little search down through, every organization, Municipalities NL, the Law Society, they've all got full-blown news releases and statements.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They do.
So,
and it's a complete disregard, especially considering Minister Paddock was emailed, Minister Den was emailed, Minister Barber was emailed, all of them directly contacted, and no desire to even acknowledge. Mr. Paddock's department, I got to chat with them briefly. Minister Den sent me off to somewhere else to reached out, no contact from anyone within those departments. And I'm just a little bit confused because it's not about working with any particular organization. It's just to say you are a new government. People are watching. People are already hesitant about how you're going to move. And if you can't do this, what does it mean for representing all of us?
And Laura Bell, you mentioned, of course, can't let that go. The ad that is getting quite a bit of traction this morning, or newsworthiness out of it. The fact that it's the striking similarities to the MAGA Republican ad. And again, this isn't just me saying it. I mean, your eyes don't lie when it comes to a still photograph, and no denial. I mean, you got the signature, you got the font. You got the same colors. You have the same words, other than one is plural, one is singular. It seems rather unbelievable that it would be a coincidence. Are you suggesting that there's a mindset here that, as you mentioned, is driven up along by the likes of Steve Outhouse and others who have been orchestrating, responsible really for the government's win as far as the work they did in the election, and now with the direction the entire government is taking?
I'm not going to speak for the government, but I'm going to say that it does look awfully suspicious. They can say it's not, but birds of a feather flock together. And if you're aligning with that kind of administration, even if you are just stealing their ideas in terms of the way they market themselves, what else are we to expect? And at this point in time, it's not like anyone particularly wants to be aligned with the way the American administration is moving, from the ICE protests and the ICE raids to the financial situation being faced in the U.S. Is that who we're trying to mimic?
Yeah, and I mean, I almost hesitate to mention this. And then, as a backdrop to all of this, you see the Conservative MP Jamal Giovanni making his quote-unquote independent, now member of the Polyev opposition Conservatives, making his quote-unquote independent trip to the United States and meeting with the White House officials, including his buddy, because they go back a long way, J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, and Giovanni, the MP, Conservative MP, is, they're good friends. They go way back, and they've been meeting and talking and saying it's just, I can't remember the exact words, but in the interest of just relations, and saying he'll have more meetings later and more to say later. Still unclear whether or not he's representing anyone official down there, but the fact that he's going there and it's making big news that he's talking about meetings and trying to find ways through with the Trump administration. I don't know. It all seems very, and then you look at the Alberta separatists and you look what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
All
of this is very suspicious. And then to see our provincial government that claims to be progressive choose a nonpartisan issue and to be so reactionary and not even good at being reactionary to the way they did it.
Yeah, and the other thing is just the silence. The lack of,
absolutely.
I'm just, again, I say it before, communication, transparency, just getting out in front of it. If you've got to be reactionary, as these calls from you right now don't happen. If they're diligent, if they're on top of things, if they are aware that this has been a slight, which is the word I'll use for now, because I haven't heard from them and I haven't heard, you should always hear both sides of this. But I welcome Minister Paddock if he can find some time for the show today, because once you call them out like that, I mean, they're listening, and they either they care or they don't care. But he's the Minister of Immigration, Jobs and Growth, Francophone Affairs, Rural Development. Love to hear from him if he's available. I don't know if that'll sway you, but without any other community.
Yeah, the issue isn't Minister Paddock specifically. It's more so Honourable Minister Wakeham. This is his government. He's supposed to be the leader of the progressive PCs. if he's not making a statement, if he's not leading his party and all government offices to acknowledge something like this doesn't fall just to Minister Paddock or Minister Barber or Minister Din. This is something Minister Wakeham should have addressed.
Yeah, it is a big enough issue.
You're a leader for us all.
Yep.
For us all.
It is well said, by the way, using their own slogan. But it is at the door of the leader, no question. This is that kind of issue. And Laura Bell, I appreciate the call. Thanks for for bringing it to our attention, because a government news release, an announcement today, and maybe even an event at Confederation Building, we would have went to and covered.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the call. Thanks for everything you do. Okay, take care. Okay, let's hold on, Dave. We just almost up to the news, so I'm going to wait till Walter right after the break. I just wanted to remind people that coming, we'll get Walter right after the news if he's okay with that. Hopefully he can hang on for a sec. Just trying to remind you, we are standing by in the newsroom for the beginning of the sentencing of Austin Deer. And we know that Mr. Deer, of course, was convicted of dangerous driving causing death in the deaths of Hayley Keating and Aaron Priddy near Arnold's Cove just over 2 years ago on January 21st. And I am acutely aware whenever I mention this story on the air or in my reports that family and friends are listening, and whenever it comes back to the news and it's in the forefront, it just reopens everything again. Hopefully, this should be the end of at least the court process today. Not hopefully. The sentencing hearings have taken place. All of the victim impact statements, which were just absolutely beyond heartbreaking. And, any tragedy like this, not an accident, as the family will say, because it was dangerous driving causing death, and the conviction is in place. And Mr. Deer was charged and convicted. But everything else has taken place to this point. So we're expecting very much at 10 a.m., barring any postponements or scheduling issues or travel, which has happened. I mean, this is reality. This is happening in the Clarenville courtroom now this morning, and should get underway any minute. We'll keep you posted on what happens there. The Crown is looking for 3 to 4 years for Mr. Deer in prison, and while the defence, which much to the chagrin of the family and friends of Hayley Keating and Aaron Priddy, are seeking house arrest. 2 years of house arrest, along with, of course, driving prohibitions and that sort of thing. It's a first offence for Mr. Deer as well. So there is a real potential for house arrest in this case. And if that happens, I'm sure we'll be hearing from you here on the show. All right, off to the news. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show for this Friday. Let's go right to line number 2. And Long Harbour, Mount Arlington Heights Mayor Walter Keating, you are on the air.
Good morning, Brian. I'm calling with a positive this morning, not a negative.
Thank the God.
We have. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Thank you, VOCM listeners, and thank you to our staff at the council office too, who sent the emails into different people. So the big holes are being filled. I'm getting calls from the plant workers. I'm getting calls from the community in Texas. So I had to call you and VOCM and say thank you for a positive this morning.
Well, listen, any kind of good news, boy, on this show, I don't need to tell you, Walter, and for anyone else who listens on a regular basis, they're definitely disproportionate, the good and the bad news, but we'll take the good and we'll talk longer than we need to talk about it, if you ask me, just to try to offset,
Yes.
Well, look, I'm glad it worked out, the magic of the show. And I appreciate, as we always say, please keep us posted. It's one thing to get on and be able to complain, and a lot of people do. But the follow-up and the conclusion to a story or to an issue is what works best here, and people know that there's a conclusion. We can close the book on it. And I say close the book on it for now because we know this isn't a one-off and a one-year thing, is it?
No, like I said, it's a positive today, and I'm happy for the safety of the workers and the people in the community. So we'll move forward on this with Mr. Patton and then Minister of what he said in 26, how the roads are going to be taken care of because of the safety issues with that big valley plant there and the employees in the community. So we'll be in contact if the negative comes again. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, Mayor Keating. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and stay pothole free.
Okay, and you and the staff of VOCM, thank you.
Thank you for calling back. Thank you. Appreciate it. Great stuff. All right. Let's go right to line number 3. And the leader of the provincial New Democratic Party, Jim Dinn, you're on the air.
Hello, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure, Jim. Nice to talk to you in this venue and for a change. And I haven't gotten the hook yet. That's because we got, we're as thin as we get here currently, so we're all filling in and doing our part, left, right, and center. But Jim,
no problem. You'd almost make a great teacher now. Then that's the case, filling in and making do with what you got.
Yeah, Don, my daughter wouldn't say that. Well, maybe she would. I don't know. I shouldn't presuppose. Should never assume. Jim, may we live in interesting times. On top of first of all, before we get into the advertiser stuff, I just want your general takeaway from the 100-day in government update from the Premier yesterday.
Well, there were a lot of promises made during the election. As it said at that time, you were at a number of the news briefings and that. I mean, there was we put forward a platform that was we knew, we sat in the House of Assembly, we knew what whatever the situation was going to be is terrible. We heard a lot of promises from the other side without cost. Here we are 100 days in. And what we've seen is a lot of announcements with regards to cuts and some of them I would agree with such as when it came to the cancellation of the hospital, as to how that deal went down. But having said that, Brian, it comes down to what's the plan going forward with regard to a number of things. I look at the MOU. We asked to when Premier Wakeham released the resignation letters, the letters from the clerk of the Executive Council, and I did speak to the Premier at the time, and I said, good on you for being transparent, but transparency doesn't stop with what the former administration did. We wanted to be, we said we would like to be part of any discussions as to how the committee goes forward. We got no response from it. So we're looking here as to what's the plan even with the MOU or with making sure Labrador West gets the power it needs. How about pharmacare? It's only day 99 that the Premier finally decides to write a letter, almost too little, too late, to the federal government that they want to engage in discussions. Everything up to this point has been tepid and really half-hearted. What's the plan to deal with travel nurses? About addressing the human resources piece in our healthcare. Affordability. We had a town hall last night on affordability, predominantly on electricity rates, but for the most part, you can tell that people are hurting. So where is the plan to address the part of their platform? Where is the plan to address the affordability piece? We've been asking for things such as removing the HST of all forms of home heating. We haven't gotten anywhere in that. So I think for the most part, it has been it's been disappointing, really, to have so much promise and so little delivered. There's, I think, a growing sense of a lack of transparency here that needs to be addressed. But the House hasn't opened. The House opens in a few months. I don't know what they got planned for the next 100 days. We'd be interested in hearing that. But I'm hoping it's going to be something with meat, and it's going to address the issues that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are struggling with.
Jim, does there are a couple of issues. To me, it's been a lot of vagaries so far from the provincial government. It's early days, so I get it. The specifics. I'm sure they're working like, busy bees behind the scenes. But it's been a lot of vagaries. The only concrete stuff, I guess, that I kind of it stands out because there's so little of it. But of course, the $15,000 income tax threshold. No tax on that until you get that point, and then there's the seniors benefits the top up to 20%. Do they do anything to give you any hope?
We'll see with the threshold for income tax, but there are people who are struggling. I don't know how many people are going to benefit from that, but the fact is that we still have a housing issue here. People are you can increase the threshold and so on and so forth, but we're looking at people who are finding it difficult to afford a home, to people are struggling with paying their rent, people who are struggling to pay for their prescription drugs or medication to afford decent food. So you can increase the threshold, but you've still got the other issues to deal with. We've been asking for, when it comes to housing, to bring in a rent and vacancy control to at least make sure that people don't get forced into homelessness. The other part is, what's the plan to have the deeply affordable housing? Now, to his credit, Minister Wall did announce 20 new homes, and they seem to be the first step, but that's a long way to get to 10,000 and a long way to addressing the issues in the system. We're spending, I think, well over $14 million, at least in 2025, on emergency housing shelters. Think what you could do if you take that money and start building more affordable housing, run more non-market, community-based housing that's focused on keeping people housed as opposed to making a profit. So I think that it's bigger than that. That these are great announcements, but man, or a great announcement, but there's a lot more that needs to be done here, and vagary is the problem that we've had. Also, that and the fact that even when it comes to trying to get an answer is becoming difficult. So that's troublesome, right? But then again, having said that, we've heard promises before, as to in the previous administration, as to, well, how is this going to play out?
Jim, those are the important issues I want to talk about. Of course, as a distraction to all of that, and probably unnecessarily, this ad that you drew attention to from the provincial government. I'm right up against a break. Can you spare a couple of minutes just to hang on so we can just talk a little bit about that?
Sure thing. Yep.
And your view of where that's going. Okay, great. Thanks. That's the NDP MHA for St. John's Centre, and of course the leader of the provincial NDP, Jim Dinn. Going to put him on hold there. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Jim. And we're going to take that break and be right back. Continue the conversation right after the break. Welcome back to Open Line. Brian Callahan with you. Let's rejoin the leader of the provincial New Democratic Party, St. John's Centre MHA, Jim Dinn. Jim, thanks for hanging in.
No problem. Thank you. So,
yes, let's, I had to do a double take. These days when you see images that come from social media or ads and that sort of thing, you wonder the origin, you look around, make sure what you're looking at is what you're really looking at. You must have been, tell me your reaction when you saw this particular ad from that. And if people haven't seen it, I should draw people's attention. So this is an ad by the provincial government, but it bears an uncanny resemblance to an ad, a similar ad, same font, same color, same wording, signature, everything. I mean, it's almost, I don't know, is it a coincidence to you that these ads from the MAGA Republicans and the provincial government look so much alike?
Look, let's start out by saying this. Anyone who claims that, well, this is just a slogan or just innocent is either being incredibly naive or incredibly dishonest or disingenuous. The fact is that all advertising, it's not by accident. It's carefully crafted for the audience. And I was just listening. It's interesting. On the break, I was listening to some of the ads there, and I'm listening to the Planet Fitness ad, which obviously is picking up on the Olympics to team approach, as they should, because they're fitness and they're drawing on the what's around them, and that would make perfectly sense. So it's not by accident. The other thing is, it's one thing, but people say, "Oh, it's just a slogan. Stop being divisive." Well, it's not only the slogan; it's basically taking the MAGA Republican or the slogan and copied also the format, the text, and everything else, but given it instead of the American flag, it's given it a Newfoundland twist. So here's the thing. At a time, in the context of what we've had to endure with the last year, where we've had a president threaten our sovereignty and actually has waged, you can call it economic war on the country, and which has jeopardized all Canadians. And we're all highly sensitized to it, and we're struggling right now to try to make sure that we can decouple and sort of chart our own independence. And we're seeing the influence, I guess, in another province, in Alberta, for example. So I think, if you're unaware of this stuff and creating these ads, then you are really, I think it's negligent and naive, and you should be more aware. Not only that, but I guess I'd go one step further. What have we seen in the last 100 days? What we were talking about earlier, we've seen a lot of overturning of the decisions and contracts that by the previous administration without any plan going forward, which is what we saw in the last year in the States. The same thing. So, it's troubling. And I'll call it out now before someone says, well, this is innocent, you're making the mountain of a molehill. Well, they said that about what we saw, and, you ignore these initial signs at your own peril. We want to make sure that what we're doing here is that we're fighting for all Canadians, that this kind of a sentiment has no business here. Talk about the promises you kept, identify them, but one thing to copy the slogan, quite another to actually copy the graphics and everything. So again, I go back to either incredibly naive or incredibly dishonest or disingenuous. You can't say, oh, it's just an innocent slogan, but it's shocking. And I guess if we didn't have Brian, had the last year behind us, you could be forgiven for saying that, Jim, you're exaggerating. But man, I tell you, there's hyperbole. This has been a year of hyperboles where it's become almost normal now. I think I want to say that we are Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We're Canadians. We're not. If we're going to copy it, then copy something within our own country and focus on our values.
Yeah, I guess the suggestion is that we dismiss these similarities at our peril. Hey, but Jim, from where you sit, is it just this ad that gives you problems, or have you seen other sort of signs of this kind of outside influence, whether it's message control, alleged message control by the federal Conservative Party or the federal Conservative machine? We know Steve Outhouse, who pretty much ran the campaign here in the province and got the Wacom government many credit with getting the government elected, the surprise election that many will consider it being. And he is, of course, the campaign manager for Pierre Poilievre. So the ties are undeniable. Do you think that's some of the leak here, the leakage in the what's emerging or what's bubbling to the top?
I think so. You can see some of the fear mongering that goes on by certain Conservative members about some federal legislation. You can see it in the, as I just said, in the approach that's been taken in the first 100 days here is a little bit concerning, I guess, on its own. But in the context now of this ad, you wonder, okay, where are we going? We've seen in the, I would say, with any of the slogan there, and I guess if anything else, I look at what I've seen from the federal Conservatives has been big on and large on slogans and small, limited, and non-existent on the actions. The attacks on media. We've had a government that did talk about not to trust the media. So am I saying that the Premier Wacom is a full-blown MAGA? No, but by God, we better not be even putting our toe in this water or stepping down this path at all. Let's focus on what we're going to do to address the issues here in this province, working within the Canadian within this country of Canada that we love. Not that we're different from not defining ourselves in terms of how we're different from the United States, but how define ourselves by the things that we hold dear and hold that are valuable. Yeah. Collaboration and so on and so forth. So yeah, I would be concerned about to your point. I don't know if they expected to win, but now that they're in here, I've half joked that they got control of the bus. They don't know where it's going, but I'm wondering then if they're actually taking the playbook from their federal counterparts and looking further abroad as to how they're going to be guided. But they made a lot of promises, uncosted promises in the election. Now they're struggling with that. But you know what? Work with the other members in the House of Assembly, the NDP, the Liberal, and the independent member, and you know what? We'll get through this. But for God's sake, I want to see, if anything, take this post down. Stop copying our advertising from the and sloganeering and from our partner down south, especially now at a time when a lot of Canadians are feeling under threat from them, and not just Canadians but other countries as well.
Yep, Jim. And the issue I have, of course, look, in my 35 years as a journalist, in the absence of comment or explanation, and the longer that goes on, it starts to morph into excuses, and silence is never a good sign. Either they have the ducks in a row or not, or they have an explanation or they don't. But as longer the silence goes on, the longer the issue we have. Look, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for making time for the show. I hope you and yours have a great weekend.
You too. Take care, Dave.
Okay, thanks. All righty. Let's go right to just before the break. Let's take Shirley on line 2. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Shirley.
I was just calling to inquire, did the T4s, were they sent out for AOS and CPP? Because I didn't receive anything.
That's nothing. When do you normally, let's see, now I had a note about that. There you
Nor
go.
did I received a form that I'd fill out for income tax.
I'm told they were mailed out. Yes, I see it here now too. Mailed out in late January, early February, and this is still early February the 6th. So, I hesitate to say where Canada Post is with all that. You get it in the mailbox, do you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I can see the Canada Post website was lit up, just the Christmas tree, that Environment Canada's website was lit up like this week with all these sort of red alerts where deliveries have been delayed or cancelled in a lot of different areas that were hit by really hard weather. So that could have something to do with it. I'm not 100% sure. But the dates that I'm told, January 29th there would have been, and February the 24th is the other date. And, of course, if you don't get it by that date, then you should probably make a phone call. I don't know what the wait times or how easy it is to get through on a call these days. Certainly CRA can take can take a lifetime. And signing up and having your own Service Canada account, you can track everything that's coming at you and what's going on there. Do you have that sort of, anyone help you, or do you have a Service Canada account?
No, I don't.
Those are really helpful. It can be a tangle. You have to go through the online sign-up process, and then they send you out the code in the mail, and you have to wait for a little while. And there are other ways you can do it. You could have a sign-in partner with your bank, which makes it a lot quicker. So the same sign-in credentials you have for your own bank account, you can use as a partner with CRA and sign into your account that way. Who does your taxes for you?
My sister, last year it was a neighbor of mine who did it, but normally it's my sister.
Yeah, or anyone close to you that you trust, a relative or whatever, that might be able to help you set up that online account. I'll tell you, I get it. It can be a tangle for anybody, and you have to block out time to do something like that. But it is worth it, because if you can have access to that, you don't have to be waiting for the mail, and God knows the weather keeps that unpredictable at the best of times.
Yes. Well, thank you, Brian, so much.
Okay. Well, you're welcome, Shirley. And again, if you don't hear something, you don't get something in your mailbox by February the 24th, that's when you want to start making a call. And even at that point, maybe your sister can help you with the right number. If you're having any problem with the contact info, call us right back here, and we will get you that information.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. You have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks so much, Shirley.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. All right, Dave, let's take that break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. That reminds me, I got to drop off Mom's bingo cards today for Radio Bingo tomorrow night. Nothing like it on the weekends, especially in the dead of winter. Cozy up with the number callers. Shameless plug. Let's go right to, before we go to line 1, I'm not sure if this is still relevant, if it's still on the go, but we did get a traffic note of eastbound traffic at a standstill near the post office there at Kenmount and Pippi. Now, if you're going through and it's all cleared up, that's great. But we did have a note that there was an accident at that intersection, the very busy intersection there by the U-Haul and the Ramada and the post office, all there at that busy intersection. So I don't know if that's still happening, but just a heads up that it was, and they may be still cleaning up the scene, and hopefully nobody was seriously hurt. And we're all good to go again, learned our lesson and moving on. Let's see. Let's go to line number 1, and Sean, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay,
I want
thanks.
to address I want to address some issues with Eastern Health there. I was in the Waterford there a couple of years ago. Now I'm part of a childhood abuse thing that went on with the church, and also with a lot of foster homes down home. Now, when I had a breakdown there 3 or 4 years ago, and I was in the Waterford for a couple of months. Now, ever since I got out of the Waterford, I was struggling to get my medication that was prescribed by a psychiatrist. However, every walk-in clinic I went to wouldn't give it to me. So this going on for a couple of years. So last year, I'm married, and I've got I got high energy. I'm ADHD, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, paranoia, whatnot. So all my abuse and stuff when I was a kid. So I was struggling to get my medication. So I said to my wife, I'm going to get on to Waterford now. So I went down to Waterford, and I told them I had thoughts of hurting people that abused me when I was a kid. She goes, are you planning on acting out on the thoughts? I said, absolutely not. I go, well, I'm here because my thoughts get worse every day. So I figured they'd put me up on the floor maybe for a week or something. And I said to the wife, I'm not going to leave now until I got a family doctor this time. And that way I can give you medication when I leave, sir. But they didn't put me up on the floor or nothing. I spent 8 hours there. Multiple times was I asked, was I going to hurt anybody or anything? I said, absolutely not. I go, but my thoughts are getting worse, so I need help. I need me medication. I go, I can't tell you what's going to happen days down the road as my thoughts get worse. That's why I'm here, to get help. I spent 8.5 hours there. Me and my wife, very calm. I was in and out for a cigarette, very polite with the nurses, doctors. Anyway, they passed me a pamphlet and a phone number. Oh, if you got any problems, it's here. It's the mental health line. But I needed my medication for my ADHD and everything. Just more or less threw me out the door. So now when I go home, I'm not even home 15 minutes. 2 RNC shows up to my house. Mr. Cork, we got to talk to you. So I go outside. They go, you're under arrest. I go, for what? They go, for uttering death threats. Now, keep in mind, I never uttered any threats. I said I had thoughts. When I was asked, was I going to act out on them, I said no, at the hospital. Now, this is all on paperwork, on the disclosure. The case has been thrown out. That's why I'm on the air here now. So I go, well, who did I threaten? They go, we don't know. So I got thrown in a jail cell for 2 days and finally got a bail hearing. So at the bail hearing now, I had a judge who dealt with me a few years ago when I first came home over something else anyway. He was fully aware of all my mental health conditions. So now I got a bail hearing, and the Crown's reading out all the information. Nowhere did I say I was going to threaten anybody. I was asked this probably 6 or 7 times throughout the 8.5 hours I was in the Waterford, trying to get my medication and get help. So I go at the bail hearing. Even the judge goes, well, who's Mr. Corcoran threatened? And the Crown's reading out disclosure. There was no saying I was going to threaten or kill anybody or anything, even in the doctor's notes. And the judge goes, well, we got to give him bail. He goes, Mr. Corcoran, you mean to tell me you don't even know who Mr. Corcoran threatened or so-called threatened or made a death threat? Obviously, even on the news over there, the radio. And the Crown goes, no, I guess we'll have to, if we let him out on bail, we'll have to put every foster parent or everyone that he ever had contact as a kid. Now, if they had to look into my file from 3 years ago, she would have known who I was talking about because I was in the Waterford a minute. I went myself in there, and I was in there for almost 2 months. Now, I spent 2 days in jail. I spent 3 or 4 times in the courtroom, and finally they were going to make a trial date. And I said, well, how are we going to make the trial? I go, I didn't do nothing wrong. I go, first of all, if somebody just take the time and read this disclosure that's in my hand. And the Crown had it, and Crown goes, Mr. Corcoran, I go, if someone would just take 20 minutes and read it, you'd find out you got no grounds to proceed on anything. He goes, Mr. Corcoran, give me 20 minutes. Came back. He goes, you're right. He goes, we got no grounds to proceed on this. But even the judge at my bail hearing even said, you mean to tell me Mr. Corcoran went to the Waterford Hospital to get help for thoughts that he's in his head? And Mr. Porter said, I'm aware of all the mental health conditions he got. He was in the right place trying to get help for himself, and he's sitting in a box there with shackles and cuffs on. Now, I went to court 3 or 4 times. This was thrown out. But, you know, our healthcare system down there, I mean, I got to, and before that, they wouldn't help me. Now, all of a sudden, when all this happened, and they knew they were in the wrong, right? I was getting a call every second day. Oh, how are you feeling, Mr. Corkin? How are you today? How come I couldn't even get no help at the hospital? But the minute that they knows now I could possibly have a lawsuit against them, oh, how are you feeling every other day? And then I finally got a family doctor because I had to phone the NP to get it. Like our healthcare system for people who got mental health conditions. And why do we have walk-in clinics? Walk-in clinics are for the reason that when you're prescribed medications and your doctor's busy, you can go into a walk-in clinic and get your prescription renewed. So why couldn't I get my prescription renewed for 2 years?
It certainly sounds like, for lack of a better term, you were flagged. But you know, Sean, look, first of all, deeply sorry for the difficult life that you've had no choice. Others chose for you, the no choice but to lead. You know, the life that you've had to lead due to the brutality and the cruelty and crimes of others. I mean, I'm down listening to these stories in court and the Humby trial. I can't, you know, I've covered a lot of difficult ones in my life, but when
you know, another thing, we got a settlement there from the church. Mm-hmm. Now we only got 2 small payments. Now, how come now they're in the courts? The government was supposed to bail out the church, and now we might get screwed out at 20 or 30%. We are awarded court because apparently the government might want to pay us out 100% of what the church couldn't cover. And 2 is, okay, that's not fair to us.
You're absolutely right.
But you can put people in hotels that came from other countries and give them $240 a day. But you can't. You mean to tell me that they're in talks about the government? We mightn't even get 100% the money that's left to us. Apparently, the government could say we're only paying 60%. Then there's nowhere for anyone to get that 40%. So that's not fair to the people that were abused by the church anyway. The Catholic Church owns St. Mary's Concrete. The Catholic Church is owned by the Vatican. The Vatican's far from bankrupt.
Oh, look, the Vatican continues to shirk their responsibilities here. You know, whether it's absolutely to the ground level of taking care of the victims of abuse, such as yourself, or just taking the land and properties and historic churches right out from under our noses, that our Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, blood, sweat and tears, devotion, charity work, everything to build up their parishes, you know, to their faith and to the depths of their faith, and then to be told, you know what, because of all the stuff that we did and swept under the rug and we're responsible for, we're going to take those churches. Sorry, so sad, you're out of luck. That kind of stuff, and it goes right to the heart of what you're talking about now. You're right. I've been trying to follow in Supreme Court they're still working on the disbursement of the money, whether it's to the victims, whether it's...
Yeah, we mightn't get the 100% that's left over to us. Yeah. But the point is, I'm getting at, and I'm not prejudiced, because my wife is from a different country. She came here, I sponsored her and all that stuff. I'm not prejudiced at all. But when you got people coming over from other countries, and you can put them in hotels and give them $240 a day, why can't you pay for your own people that got abused? Covered the 100% that's left over from the church, and let us get on with our life so we're not dragging this on and it's being a burden on our mental health. This is shit we're trying to put behind. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Sorry.
This is stuff we're trying to put behind us, and it's been lingered on. So, you know, me personally, I like to move on with my life and forget about all this. I'll never forget it, but at least try. At least I'm not dealing with this. At least, you know what I mean? I can try to lock it away, right?
Sean, only because I'm right up to the break, I wanted to go back to your original point. More importantly, what are you doing for the necessary medications that you need right now to keep yourself in a good state of mind?
I got a family doctor, thank God, because I called the NP, and then, like I said, Eastern Health was all wanting to help me when they found out they were wrong. I was getting phone calls every second. So I got a family doctor now, and she's a wonderful doctor. It was a new clinic open in Portugal Cove. And honest to God, I lost all faith in the police force, all faith in doctors. I find it hard to trust anybody. This is the second time now I got arrested trying to get my medication. 2 years before that, it happened in Whitburn.
There's a real err on the side of caution feeling to everything that the police and healthcare officials have to do these days.
I can't trust nobody. So now my mental health is worse than it ever was, because I can't trust the church, who you should be able to trust. I can't trust the cop. right? Which, I don't really have a great relationship with police officers anyway, but besides the point, right?
Yeah, look, I hate to tear everybody.
Then I had hospital issues, doctor issues, right?
And I hate to tear everybody with because look, we know there are great cops, we know there are good lawyers, we know there are good judges. I always hesitate to tear everybody with the same brush because everybody gets the backup. I'm just wondering too, despite all this, did you ever get access to the mental health court? I mean, the good work of people like Peter Ralph, Mark Rushy, who set up.
No, I never. No, I haven't.
Because more and more of these cases are getting put to specialized mental health court where they can deal specifically with situations like yours where mistakes were made and people probably didn't take all the time and due diligence they needed to look into your file and see exactly what it meant when you said you were hearing voices about wanting to hurt people, that kind of thing, Yeah.
And not just that, like in a judge's own words, he goes, and I have a disclosure, like it's what I'm telling you is exactly what's on paper. I'm not, right? Because I got my own disclosure. And the judge right on the judge's words goes, I can't believe this. And then the Crown had the nerve to say, well, Mr. Corcoran spent most of his time up in Ontario. He's a flight risk and try not to give me bail. And the judge turned around and said, he's getting bail because he shouldn't even be here.
Well, you had an insightful judge in that case who took the time, to look through the various circumstances. And you're right, the disclosure evidence for people listening is what you are entitled to as an accused. Normally it goes to your lawyer, but if you're on a first appearance or if you don't have counsel or legal aid yet, all that information will go to you. Or if you're at HMP, people out in HMP, it gets delivered to them.
That's right, because when the disclosure was read out in the Crown at the bail hearing, the judge goes, there's nowhere in this anything in here that Mr. Corky said he was going to go hurt anybody or do anybody.
Yep.
Or do anything to anybody.
Sean, listen, only because of the time on the clock, I'm really sorry.
We'll make it short, but I'd like to close it up with the Newfoundland government needs to pay 100% of the payouts. If the government's going to bail out the people that got abused in the church, they deserve 100%. Is all I got to say.
Keeping an eye on it, and Jeff Budden and lawyer Jeff Budden, who's representing many of the victims in this case. If Jeff's listening, if he wants to give me a shout, and because I can't get to every hearing, and a lot of these are in Supreme Court. Some of them are closed hearings, and they're really into the weeds, and you'd almost have to stay there for the day. But if Jeff or any of the other lawyers that are on the case versus the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation, Incorporation of St. John's. Jeff, if you're listening, love a call just to update me on where all that is. Sean, take care of yourself, buddy. I'm here next week if you want to chat again.
Yeah, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay, take care. All right, Dave, a little past the break. Sorry about that. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. Let's go right to line number 2. And Todd Perrin, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you doing this morning?
Grand, sir. Long time no see. I think it was last week when you guys had the Ferry Coalition announcement, hey? Down at the Alt Hotel, representing Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, of course. But today you're on another topic, and the NMCAs have caught your attention, especially as they should for HNL. What's your? I see a news release just issued like an hour ago by HNL. Can you give me the Coles notes?
Well, I think from an H&L perspective is kind of a two-pronged response to the announcement. Firstly, of course, I think, disappointed that, a project or a plan that would be significantly beneficial to the growth of the tourism industry on the southwest coast kind of was cut off at the knees. Before you go through the process of feasibility and full understanding of the pros and the cons and whatnot. That's clearly an issue from the H&L perspective. I think that I've heard other callers say the whole thing is not perfect, but I think that some of the verbiage that's around it is not accurate. There's a lot of things that many things were still able to proceed there. It was not going to halt much of the activity. If anything, it just brings a level of accountability to the activity that goes on in that region in terms of aquaculture, fisheries, and whatnot. So, and Lord knows the world needs a bit more accountability. I think that the maybe even a stronger kind of point from the H&L perspective is that from the commentary I heard from government and from other organizations and whatnot, the whole tourism industry was kind of pushed aside as a niche or not considered. Government talked about supporting industry and jobs, but only certain industry and certain jobs. And I think this is part of the challenge that tourism has broadly across Newfoundland and Labrador and across North America, is that we're sitting at the kids' table. The Newfoundland and Labrador tourism industry is bigger than the fishery. It employs more people, it generates more revenue, it pushes revenue into every nook and cranny of Newfoundland and Labrador, at least as well as fisheries does. And so, I think to prioritize one over the other is very short-sighted, and it's kind of looking backward, not looking forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, the town speaks, and they're on the ground. They speak to it. A lot of people telling them that they've just missed out on some immediate opportunities to grow that industry, as opposed to, industries and other projects that may or may not get off the ground at a certain time. It's just, it just feels. I'll ask the same question whether we can do both at the same time.
Well, certainly we can, because, again, I think if people delved into, and I was lucky to be part, I've sat through a full pitch from DFO on, what a marine conservation area is versus a marine protected area. So, I've got a little bit of knowledge that maybe everyone doesn't have, but that information's out there. And, part of pulling the MOU means we won't get to the full study where people get to really see what is being proposed, what's permitted, what's not permitted, all of that stuff. But, the whole point of this place, the whole reason that we're still here 500 years later is a working together attitude. And if we're going to prioritize one industry to the detriment of another, that is not the way that Newfoundland and Labrador, particularly rural Newfoundland and Labrador, is going to be successful. The fishing boats coming and going from the coves and the harbours of Newfoundland and Labrador is as important to the Newfoundland and Labrador tourism industry as whales, icebergs, and puffins are. So, there's nobody in our industry that would say, we should get priority over those guys. But you turn the shoe on the other foot. Why should they get priority over us? Again, I've said this before in other meetings, Brian. If the Newfoundland and Labrador government or the Canadian government of any stripe had the ability to put more fish in the water or more oil in the ground, or more mine or more ore in the dirt or whatever, if they could do that, they would do that with the stroke of a pen. And supporting tourism initiatives does exactly that. It puts more fish in the water. It creates opportunities for sustainable growth of an industry that basically has become, one of the biggest industries in Newfoundland and Labrador, bigger than our traditional industries, on its own, with very little support, very little backing, very little acknowledgement. So imagine what we could do if we had, governments of all stripes that were getting behind initiatives like this South Coast Marine Protected Area, because, the South Coast of Newfoundland and Labrador is one of the most dramatic and beautiful shorelines, coastal sceneries in the whole entire world, and is completely untapped in terms of its potential. And again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, as you said this morning, and I don't think that we're doing that. We're just not doing that. And to not hear tourism come out of the mouths of the powers that be all around, other than to kind of, pass it on the side as something that people do on the weekends. $1 earned in tourism is the same as $1 earned in mining, is the same as $1 earned in the fishery. And arguably it goes much, much further. There are no large corporate entities that control and suck the money out of the Newfoundland and Labrador tourism industry. It is moms and pops, small businesses, restaurants, tours, bars, museums, community organizations right across this province. And the time that I've said before, I've said it to the Liberal governments, I've said it to the PC government, I've said it to the NDP. The government that gets behind tourism in the same way that we've gotten behind other things will change the face of Newfoundland and Labrador forever, and they will never be forgotten in a positive way.
Todd, listen, heard loud and clear, and I'm sure more voices to follow you. One quick note, and I'm right up to the news. I just wanted to ask you, going back to the Ferry Coalition news conference you held last week that I attended, I had asked at the time Anne-Marie Boudreau with Board of Trade whether she had mentioned that letters were sent to all MPs and the PM for their opinions on what's, on the effort to improve capacity on the Marine Atlantic Ferry Service. Have you heard anything back?
I have not heard that we've heard anything back. The folks in the office would know better than me, but as far as I know, we haven't got a response yet to those letters. Okay, I'll look for a follow-up for you on that. Thanks again. All right, Todd Perrin there with Hospitality Newfoundland. Let's go off to the news, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And welcome back to the program. Just a little bit of breaking news here for you before we get to our next caller. So Austin Deer has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Not house arrest, no time served in custody while this case went through the courts. So that's straight 3 years sentence in prison. That's a federal sentence. Anything over 2 years is a federal sentence. And as well, I believe, a 4-year driving prohibition. So, of course, Mr. Deer was convicted of 2 counts of dangerous driving causing death in the deaths of Aaron Priddy and Haley Keating near Arnold's Cove just over 2 years ago. And again, originally charged with impaired driving and dangerous driving times 2, but again, the Crown was unable to prove that he was over the legal limit, and there were a lot. That's really the very basic explanation there. There was a lot of application and a lot of arguments over whether or not impaired should have remained or not, and in the end, judicially, it was determined that he was not over the legal limit. The straight charge was dangerous driving causing death. The Crown made an application to at least have it considered that he consumed some alcohol and prescription drugs. I should say some alcohol the night before and some prescription drugs the next day. But it was deemed not to have an material effect on the outcome. And so Mr. Deer, Austin Deer, former negotiator, of course, with NAPE, retired now, 73 years old, horrific set of circumstances. Again, there'll be everyone in that case involved in that case will tell you there are absolutely no upsides to this, no winners, no losers. Just horrible for the families and friends involved. And again, a great awareness for, the conviction here was dangerous driving. I say it every day. To drive safely, arrive alive, VOCM cares, but it's just a matter of awareness. Driving should be the number one priority when you're behind the wheel. Not the radio, not the phone, not the dog, not the kids in the back seat. There's all kinds of distractions. Distracted driving is a killer. Plain and simple. Let's go to line number 5. And line number 5, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning. First, I'd like to go back a little bit and say hi to Sean, and I agree with him. The mental health system in Newfoundland is totally broken. I'm a mental health advocate myself, and people are committing suicide and having these things happen to them, and we're doing it to them. The government has done it to them. Most of the pills on the streets now are prescription medications. You got your Suboxone, you got your lorazepam, your clozapam, all these medications doctors are giving us. If I'm a patient and I'm taking these pills, they give me 30 pills. I can take 30 for myself, sell the other 30. So basically, our doctors, our nurses, our government are putting these drugs out on our streets. But, our mental health system is totally broken. But that's not really what I want to talk to you about today. My concern is the Carbonear Hospital over here. I just moved here recently, and I've been over to the hospital a few times, and I've seen a lot. I also work in healthcare myself. I was at the hospital not long ago, a few months ago, for significant bleeding. I got there at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I waited up until 9 o'clock a.m. the next morning. Still hadn't seen a doctor. Was through triage, but still hadn't seen a doctor. Still bleeding so much that I was bleeding out through my clothing. This was going on for days. I finally went to Operlican, and they see me down there. But because of the lack of discretion and respect of the Carbonear Hospital, I now have to take blood transfusions because my blood has dropped. So I have no iron, no platelets. My blood is completely no good to my body because I now have to take blood transfusions. Also, recently, I fell down, and I don't know if I have broken ribs or not, but I had an x-ray done yesterday. I've been back and forth to this hospital 3 times now, and this morning I went in at 5 a.m., went through triage, seen the nurse. Nurse sent me back up front. I said, how long is it going to be? I had to work. And she said, you shouldn't be long. I find out that they don't see patients until 8 a.m. when they do changeover. So you've got people sitting in the waiting room all that time until 8 a.m. when the doctor is supposed to see you. Now, they only have one doctor on, one in Emerge, and the same one does the whole hospital. So that doctor comes on at 8 a.m., he goes and does his rounds, then he comes down to emerge. If there's time, he'll see people. If not, if something goes on upstairs, he's got to go with them. So it's ridiculous the way our health system is now, and there's people taking the blunt of it, and patients are being neglected day in and day out. Recently, they had a man die of a heart attack, waited 10 hours in the hospital, in the waiting room, was sent out. They should have known. Anyone with chest pain automatically goes through. They could have put the man on an EKG, did blood work, did what they should have done their jobs, in my opinion, and that man may still be alive today. But 10 hours waiting with chest pain is ridiculous.
Yeah, and that story involving, I think you're referring to Betty Lou Power and her husband, Robert, and that occurred last March in 2025. Of course, and you're right. He was he was put out into the hallway, and he sat in a chair, and they were in the waiting area. Stayed there for 10 and a half hours, and apparently had a massive heart attack while he was waiting in that chair. Now, NLH Services has. They released a statement on this, referring to the onus on, say, you or the caregiver or whoever's there with that particular patient. And they say to alert nursing staff or to alert the doctor or to alert staff if there's a change in the condition. Well, I've been there. We've all been there. And you bother the staff at your peril. Now, the staff are great. Look.
Yes, I will not disagree with you. The staff at the Carbonear Hospital are amazing. I went there yesterday. I had my first blood transfusion. And the nurses, I couldn't have asked for better people to be with me. They were amazing. The problem is, Brian, it's that the people inside that emergency, right from the people who register you in, don't care about the patients. They just sit there, they watch, they listen, but that's it. They don't care. All they care about is what they got to do. And there's not enough staff over there. Obviously, they should have 2 doctors, as I said earlier, one for Emerge and one for the hospital itself. Why is one doctor doing the job of 4 people? It's ridiculous. And I had x-rays done yesterday, so I could understand if I was waiting on x-rays to come back or test results and stuff like that. But the x-rays were taken yesterday at 3 o'clock p.m. It is now, or it was, 8 o'clock a.m. the following day. So it wasn't like I was waiting on results, and all I wanted to know was if my ribs were broken or if they were bruised. Come out, tell me they're broken, tell me they're bruised, whatever needs to be done. I know you can't fix it because you can't fix broken ribs, but let me know and then send me on my way.
Communication. It seems such a simple thing, and like you said, the 8 o'clock in the morning thing, if people know these little intricacies, these unique situations that are unique to every different emergency room and every hospital facility in this province, absolutely. Communication, I can't say enough. It's the one constant, the one consistency that we can all agree on would help everybody across the board, no matter what the information is. Let me let you clue up there. I got about a minute before we got to go to a break.
Okay. Well, Brian, I just one more thing I wanted to bring up that really turned my stomach this morning. While waiting, there was only probably maybe 4 of us in the waiting room. The nurse came out, and there's a clipboard on the triage door, and she erased the time on it. It said 3 hours for non-urgent patients, 4 hours for urgent patients. That's the wait time. She came back out. She erased those numbers and put down 4 hours for non-urgent patients 6 hours for non-urgent patients and 4 hours for urgent patients. So I looked at her and I said, okay, so what does that mean for me? Because you just told me I'm the next one. Oh, she said, we're going to get you in soon. Brian, I had to leave because obviously I had to go to work. I had to be to work for 10 o'clock. This is now 20 after 9. I still hadn't seen a doctor. Nobody had even come to even tell me what my x-ray results were, nothing. So my thing is, if you're not going to open up the ER until 8 o'clock in the morning, put a note up saying the hospital is not open until 8 a.m.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It can be.
Our healthcare system is so gone down the drain. It's unbelievable. Like I can remember as a child going to the hospital and no time you got in. And the Carbonear Hospital is by far the worst. Yeah. Clarendon Hospital, Eastern Health, all the other ones, I've never had a problem with. But Carbonear Hospital is by far the worst I've ever seen. Not unique to us, of course, these issues with healthcare, but just seem to be exacerbated here. I tell you one thing, I haven't had a chance this week, but I know the former CEO of NL Health Services, who was recently released
left the position. Dr. Pat Parfrey, I'm looking at you. If Dr. Parfrey would ever like to weigh in on some of the situations, the changes that have occurred since his departure, I can appreciate that there's like a quiet time he'd like to have, and probably doesn't want to weigh into these things. But the more and more we hear from that the situation in different places around the province, different hospitals, cancelling hospitals, renovating hospitals, and undoing a lot of the things that he had the hand on, I'd be more than curious to hear from Dr. Parfrey if he feels so inclined. Thanks for the call, caller. I got to get off to the break. Please let us know how that goes in the future. Any experiences at the hospitals? We're trying to see some change, some positive change. I know those are out there. They just seem still in the minority compared to the difficulties people are having. Let's take that break. Be right back with the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Climate Change, Chris Tibbs, right after the break. Back to the program. We are nearing the home stretch for this week. Let's go right to line number 4 and welcome to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Climate Change, Chris Tibbs, the MHA for Grand Falls, Windsor Buckens. You're on the air.
Thank you very much, Brian. I want to thank you for taking my call, and I also want to start out by wishing Mr. Paddy Daly the best in his ventures next to come. So thank you very much for taking my call today.
Absolutely. I'm sure he grandly appreciates that.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say we had put out the call just so people know to the Premier, but in his stead we have you. I understand it's busy times and all the rest of it, so you're the man today. Where did you want to start?
Well, I just wanted to start with the Premier's announcement yesterday of his first 100 days in office for this government. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things there. And after our first 100 days in office, Brian, we focused on delivering better health care, lower taxes, and safer communities. It's exactly what we campaigned on, all supported by a disciplined, ambitious economic agenda for Newfoundland and Labrador. We are strengthening health care by refreshing the leadership of Newfoundland and Labrador Healthcare Services, initiating a new advocacy approach with the federal government and the National Pharmacare, leading towards a spring budget that will focus on healthcare workers and patient access. We've also lowering taxes and supporting affordability by freezing university tuition and committing to meaningful tax relief in the Premier's first government budget coming up. We're building safer communities. That was promised as well, Brian, by restoring 24-hour snow operations and launching a review and renewal process for provincial court systems. We're restoring responsible finances by releasing a fall fiscal update, revising wasteful spending, closing down the Boston office. We're standing up for Newfoundland and Labrador, Brian. That's one of the biggest things, and that's what we want to focus on here today and moving into the future by cancelling the MOU, which is something that I did, and I did it all in good conscience. Launching a truly independent review of Churchill River Memorandum of Understanding, and launching a new national advocacy for Newfoundland and Labrador to receive its fair share of federal defence and healthcare spending. We're developing Newfoundland and Labrador's economy by re-engaging the national global offshore energy proponents to restart new offshore oil projects and starting with Beta Nord, whether it be the nurse practitioner on Change Islands. We are moving, Brian. We are moving in the right direction, and we are focusing on making lives for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians better moving into the future. So those are just some of the things that we've done in our first 100 days. I think it was an ambitious stretch, and I think that we've fulfilled our commitments up to the first 100 days, and I look forward to this government fulfilling its promises moving forward as well.
All right. So, did you write all that yourself? No, I'm just kidding. That's a lot of staff work. That's a lot on the list. I appreciate. Let me ask you this: with regard to the NMCA on the South Coast Fjords, are you satisfied that everyone had a fair heads up that this was coming, had their fair chance at input, and why the decision now?
Well, this has been going on, as we heard yesterday, Brian. This has been in talks for decades on end. There have been hardcore conversations about it for the past 2 years, and we weren't satisfied that the industries that we want to protect in these provinces, that pay the bills, that pay for the roads, that pay for the health care, those industries need to be protected, Brian. We want to protect the jobs in those industries. We want to protect the families that work in those industries, whether it be fishing, aquaculture, mining, the oil and gas at some point. We need to protect these industries, Brian, and that's what this government is going to do.
Well, fair enough. But is there not, the term, walk and chew gum at the same time? I go back to, are you satisfied that everyone had a fair heads up? Because what we're hearing a lot of is the communication aspect of this, the blindsiding for some. I know you're saying it's been on the percolator, but I mean, whether or not the final decision to just axe the MOU without following it through at least to see what might come of it. Some people have compared it to, you took a review on the MOU, no problem. But on this one, you just axe it outright. Isn't there it's like a theory and a standard of review here that just seems very uninterrupted? I mean, process began, why not tear it out and finish it out?
it was incumbent on the players at the table, Brian, to bring it to the government to ensure that there's a trust there that these industries will not be affected. And those conversations went on for 2 years, and there was still no concrete evidence that jobs would be protected on the South Coast and within these industries. Then we weren't satisfied with this MOU. Brian, conservation is extremely important to this government. It's extremely important to me. And I'm going to be looking for conservation areas across this province, but this was not the right fit at this time in the area that it was in. And I've gotten overwhelming support from many people on both sides of the aisle, Brian, to ensure that these industries are protected. And I look forward to future conversations. I think I have a meeting with the Mayor Burgio and the Town Council coming up on February 17th. We're going to sit down and talk about how we can make that community successful moving into the future as well. But having conservation extremely important. It will not be to the detriment of any jobs or any industries right here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're going to protect our own future here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we're going to protect Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Yeah, did you say, sorry, a date there, February 17th, you're sitting down with who? Is it the Town Council and
the Mayor Burgio, Trevor Green, yes.
Okay, so just the Town Council involved in that one.
I guess so. Well, I know it's with the mayor and who he wishes to bring. I'm just not sure. I haven't seen everybody who's going to be involved in the meeting, but I mean, they can take whoever they wish, and we're open for communication either way. But at the end of the day, Brian, we will not put any industry in this province in any jeopardy. Including the tourism? We have a great tourism industry here, Brian. Absolutely. And any tourist that would wish to visit the South Coast and Burgeo, I would encourage you to do so. It's the most magnificent, beautiful place. And people are concerned for Sandbanks Park there. Do you think that'll... What does the future hold for that? Well, Brian, just because we don't come onto this ambitious 30% of coastline from the federal government being conserved, that doesn't mean that we're not going to go through the proper EA reviews. We have some of the most stringent, but some of the quickest turnarounds as well for any projects that want to happen here in Newfoundland, Labrador, and all of Canada. If anybody would like to, again, at the end of the day, if we don't need to come on board with the federal government or the proponents involved to create that conservation area to protect it. I'm going to make sure as Minister of Environment and Climate Change that area remains protected. And we're going to make sure that industry does play a part in that as well. Okay, a couple of quick ones, and I know your time and mine is short. You dismissed the town of Victoria back in late January. At the time, you said that there might a special election possibly coming up in the not-too-distant future. You didn't give a date. Any clearer picture as to what the future holds for the town council out there? No, I mean the town councillors that just served, they can run again, and I just hope that in the future that this sort of reset can help them move into the future for once again a successful community out there. Listen, I know a lot of them were heartbroken at the time, sort of thing, but we put out a very good administrator there, Chris Stamp. He's done an amazing job. He's doing their budget now, I believe, and we are going to have a special election. And I would encourage anybody who would want to run for municipal politics out there, anywhere else, to do so. You know, it can be a very thankless job at times, but I really appreciate those who step up. But we want to make sure that the people of Victoria were the main ones of our concern. We want to make sure that they were okay at the end of the day. And this decision was not taken lightly, Brian, not by no means. But it was a decision that was made for the people of Victoria. I look forward to making sure that the supports are in place for the new council. I'm going to go speak with them as well as soon as they get elected and ensure that we can move together in a very successful manner. And ballpark maybe for that special election? I'm not sure, Brian. I mean, it's going to be within the next, I couldn't give you a ballpark. I would hope it would be in the next couple of months here. We don't want it to go on too long, but in order for the special election to take place, we need to make sure that the town of Victoria are in a good place and they are stable, and that's exactly what we're doing in the meantime. Okay, Minister, last one. In the world of advertising, I'm sure you're aware by now the controversy that the latest ad from the provincial government has created, certainly spurred on by the NDP leader, Jim Dinn, and I can't tell you how many emails and messages I've received about it. This is the ad, of course, that I think you would agree, I'll be interested to hear your comment, that looks remarkably similar to one used by the MAGA Republican Party in the United States. It uses the same words, the same fonts, the same color. The only difference, I think, in the wording is one is plural and one is singular. We always hear, when there's an advertisement by a government put out there in the public realm, this ad was approved by, or he'll say endorsed by, the Honourable Tony Wakeham. Who put this ad together, and was it approved by your government or the Premier? It came out from us, Brian, so of course it was approved. But to me, it's utter nonsense, in my own personal opinion. Listen, anybody can draw any conclusion that they wish. I mean, I've looked across the aisle over the past 7 years and seen a scene of red and red ties and everything else. I didn't go out screaming MAGA. And at the time, that's not something that we were doing because we were focused. We were focused on the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. We were focused on making sure that the investments are there, that the healthcare is there, and that's what this government is focused on, Brian. Again, I can't help people interpret what they wish to interpret, but Premier Wakeham is one of the most sincere, kindest people I've ever met in my entire life. I watched him sit down for up to an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time with one constituent when he had somewhere else to be, because there was something on that constituent's mind that meant something to them. He's as far as MAGA as you can possibly get. It doesn't even come into our mindset, Brian. To me, again, it's absolutely foolishness, but I can't help people interpret what they wish to interpret. This government is not focused on that. This government is focused on ensuring the success of Newfoundland and Labrador, and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians moving forward.
Yeah, you turned it towards the personality of the Premier. I had nothing to do with that. The question I was asking was who put it together and was it approved? Because, look, I have no issue. Again, the Premier and I've known Mr. Wakeham a long time, whether through sporting and through healthcare in Labrador and Grenfell and everything. So this is not about him personally. I believe, as you say, good Newfoundlander, he has all of our best interests at heart. My question is, and the suggestion has been, that this came to the government, provincial government, from another entity. I'm just curious, was it done by a local ad agency? When did you see it? Was the government here on the ground aware that it was coming out?
I seen it, Brian. I didn't pay any attention to it until somebody brought it up.
None
today.
whatsoever?
Again, I can't, none whatsoever. I seen it. It was a promise made, and it was a promise kept, and we are extremely proud of the promises that we have kept thus far. Again, if people wish to interpret like Mr. Ginn wishes to focus on interpreting...
It's in fairness, it's hard not to interpret it with they're almost identical, Chris.
Sure, absolutely. And again, you can interpret that, Brian, but that's not what this government is focused on.
I would argue it's not an interpretation. It's pretty, I was going to say black and white. It's pretty red, white, and blue.
Again, Brian, I look across the aisle, I see a sea of red. Do I scream MAGA? Absolutely not. It's the same color. I mean, we can go down this road all day long, Brian.
No, I understand.
The fact of the matter is, this government is not focused on a message that can be taken from a different interpretation from different people. This government is focused on jobs, healthcare, lower taxes, and safer communities. And that's exactly what we're going to deliver over the next 4 years. And if I may, Brian, if I could take one more moment, Michael King called in earlier.
Sure.
Michael King. Had a couple conversations with him, whatever. I hope he does the best for his district. But a little advice for the MHA of the district. In the past 100 days, he didn't send me any correspondence. He didn't reach out and sit down and talk to me about the NMCA on the South Coast. Nothing at all. It was a soapbox after the fact. 7 years in opposition, Brian, under my belt, I made sure that I went out and went to the ministers themselves to sit down. If I had an issue in my district, it was done beforehand. You advocate beforehand. Anybody can get up on the soapbox in the woods and scream afterwards. I would ask any MHA out there on the other side of the aisle, come and talk to me at any time. I'm very accessible, but let's do the advocacy before decisions are made.
Very good. Chris Tibbs, Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Conservation, and the Tory MHA for Grand Falls, Windsor Balkans. Minister, I appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the questions, and thanks for your explanations.
I appreciate your time as well, Brian, and I look forward to the next 4 years that we have in this government. And I just say, the last government that went out, what are they remembered for in the 170 days under the former premier there, John Hogan? It was giving themselves a raise as they're going out through the door. So that's what, in my opinion, that's what they're remembered for. I can guarantee you that we're going to be remembered for jobs, safer communities, and healthcare moving forward.
Fair enough. Minister, thank you again for your time. Have a great weekend. All right, that is Chris Tibbs, the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Conservation. A little over the break, but well worth it. Let's take that break. Be right back.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
And welcome back to the final half hour for Open Line for this week. Let's go right to line number 3, and you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
You're more than welcome.
Okay. I'm looking to get some legal help. I've been in contact with legal aid, but I was told my situation is a civil matter. I did have money I was paying into my daughter's account for her RESP for post-secondary school. And I found out this summer that my ex-wife took out $17,000 and put it into another account. and she's told our daughter that she's not going to help her with school anymore. So
okay.
I was told by legal aid, like, if the money's there for your daughter, it's not your wife's and it's not yours, right? I've reached out to my ex-wife, and I said, you know what, give me half back, and that's fine, and I'll worry about the rest. But I was told by someone at legal aid, that's no, it's not just half, it's 100%, and the money's there for your daughter. So essentially, it's there for her. So, right? But like say, I was told that it's a civil matter, and I'm looking, if anybody's listening on the radio now, I can leave my information. Somebody can give me a call, see if they can help me out.
Yeah, look, my 1,000% first advice on this would be to stay away from court, stay away from legal. And that's a perfect world. Some exes and ex-partners have great partnerships and relationships. They see that the most important thing in a relationship are the children and their well-being. That's what the adults in the room are supposed to do and see, and find ways around that. So, you just in no way, shape, or form you see that. Let them see the upset or the turmoil or the back and forth or the arguing or the disagreements, all that kind of thing. That's my first reaction, because it should all be about the children in this and not about the adults. Second to that, if you can't avoid that, and we all know that there are relationships that go south, that it's just not possible, and people get their lawyers and they dig in, and it spends years in court, and it's horrible because, again, it's the kids, it's the dependents that end up suffering the most, while egos and money get in the way. All I can tell you, I would say in this case that, if legal aid's one avenue, but of course the public legal information is the PLEAN, right? Public Legal Information Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. They provide free advice on this kind of thing for people who've just come up against the wall and they need another avenue, they need another route, they need another option. Are you familiar with that organization?
No, I'm not.
Okay, it's called PLEAN, and again, PLEAN is the. I'm not, for someone who hates acronyms. I can't believe I just said the acronym 3 times, but it's called the Public Legal Information Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. I can give you links and phone numbers and emails if you want, or Dave can give them to you. I don't mind giving them out over the air because 10 times, because guaranteed there are other people listening and probably can avail of this information as well, right?
Okay, perfect.
So so Dave's going to give you that number. I'm just going to really quickly throw out an 888 number, 888-660-7788. For others who are listening as well, Dave's got your information. I'm going to put you on hold now before we go to the break, and he can give you all, including the, emails and the website itself. The website actually is pretty straightforward too. If people want to go to that, it's publiclegalinfo.com. Publiclegalinfo.com. And one more time, 888-660-7788. But again, you go to that website, you'll get all that information. And hang on there on the line. Dave will get you, give you a little bit more information, including email and that sort of thing. So you can at least touch base with them, because, I'm not going to pretend every situation is different. The minutia of the depth of it and what's being shared and what's not. And who knows, it could be resolvable without any kind of court. Who knows, it could be a tangle that just can't be resolved that way, and you may need that kind of professional advice. So I hope that works out for you. Dave, right at the break, what do you say we take that break and come back with Anthony? We're going to talk some EVs before we head into the weekend. Right back. Welcome back to the show, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this breaking news. If you're a baseball fan, particularly a Blue Jays fan, Buck Martinez has announced his retirement. Just announced his retirement. Just breaking news there now. Buck, the legend, Blue Jays legend catcher over the years, and of course later on the announcer for the Blue Jays. Get up, ball. Get up, get up, get up. And swing at a drive. And all those other great calls that Buck Martinez made over there. What an institution. So he won't be announcing. This is we're just going to all miss him this year. He won't be behind the microphone this year for the Jays season. Anyway, I just mentioned that. There's a lot on that I'd love to talk about, including my own personal family connection, because Martinez, 77 now, he was born in Redding, California, where, coincidentally enough, my 2 aunts lived for years and years and years when I was a child, and I spent there some time there as a child. If I'd only known that Buck was from there at the time, I could have, Maybe I could have hitched onto his wagon and ended up next to him in the booth. Who knows? Anyway, the great Buck Martinez hanging it up. I know there were some questions about his health over the past little while. No mention of that today, and that's good. Let's hope that's a good omen. But Buck Martinez retiring from the booth. Not as a player, of course. That happened about several decades ago. But retiring from the broadcast booth, just announced a short time ago. So there you go. Let's go right to line number one. And Anthony, you're on the air.
Yes, the government of Canada has made a big push for people to go EV, but the range on these vehicles is terrible. It's okay if you're living in the city and you want to get around, but I live here up on the Great North Peninsula in St. Anthony, and I drive down between St. Anthony and Deer Lake, and the other thing happens with these EVs is that if it's super cold outside, your range drops, plus it's not just from the cold, but also you have to keep your cabin warm. Your range drops significantly. So, I have, so that it's just not practical. They're talking about having more charge stations, but it takes a while to charge these vehicles. So it would take 2 to 2 or 3 days maybe to get to St. John's. The way these things charge. I mean, I can drive, it takes 12 hours or 13 hours. It takes 13 hours or so to drive to St. John's nonstop. But you with 13 hours would turn into maybe 15 or 24 hours before you would be able to, if you were going nonstop, because the charging. So I don't think that the technology is not there yet. And the average car gets between 700 and 800 kilometers on a tank of gas. So, I just do not see them being very practical. I know there's people who have hybrids, and they prove out not to be that great either. So, I think there should be more work done on maybe combustion engine and try and make it more fuel efficient, more gentle to the environment. But right now they've pushed electric everything, like the houses and stuff like that. They ask people to go electric, yet if we get a power outage because the grid's down, there's no local regional generating stations to keep people from going without electricity for beyond 5 hours. I mean, we had an outage up here a while ago for 15 hours, and they could not rotate the power for us in town. So, all this talk about, they pushed majority of people and they change over to electricity, but they can't produce enough electricity in an emergency to make it available for people in towns. So they need to think about backup and looking at the infrastructure of not just the charging, but the electrical infrastructure. If everybody went electric cars, I do not think the electrical infrastructure could handle it.
Yeah, and this is all part of, as you said, and a hydrogen cell as well. I mean, the technology's not there completely on that either. Look, this is a pivot to me, away from the diesel, the gas. We heard Trump, drill, baby, drill. His focus is on gas, is on diesel still, is on drilling more. This is part of the Carney strategy. It's the chess game we're playing. It's kind of clever in a way, and I agree with you when you say right now, the cars, the infrastructure, the charging stations. First of all, they're not affordable. The expectation, there are a lot of elements to this because the rebates exclude certain vehicles and others. So, for example, first of all, the 50,000 EVs that are supposed to come in that China deal won't be, you won't be able to get the $5,000 rebate off those. So that's that protects local industry. But the idea, I think, Carney is trying to make Canada the EV capital of the world, if you ask me. He's trying to take that pivot to, and granted, 70% of all vehicles made in Canada right now are either Japanese or Korean. And they still want 75% of all new cars sold in Canada by 2035 to be EVs or hybrids or the hydrogen. It's a smart strategy if they want to get in on this ground floor, but it's going to take a while. And the money has been set aside for the charging stations. Remains to be seen. And they're talking about the technology quickly ramping up to the point where where those vehicles won't be the big, heavy Sportsters and Spiders and Teslas that we see on roads, but small compact cars that can go longer, that are built more intellectually, electrically chargeable. And so I wish I had more time. We're almost up to the end of the show. I love the conversation. There's so many aspects to the strategy that sees this. It removes the mandates that the Trudeau government had in place and sort of just relaxes them a bit more than anything. Instead of a strict mandate to here's what we have to have by this date, it's reduced a bit, and it gives more flexibility to getting more supply as opposed to all the demand, and at a more affordable price. And that's it in the nutshell. It is trying to.
The other thing is, what happens to batteries after a while? They get depleted after a while, and they only take so many charge cycles.
Absolutely.
So then at $30,000, you have to replace your battery or whatever. Batteries after a while. So right now, average electric car has got range of 300 to 400 kilometers. Well, that's no good for anybody who lives outside of St. John's or major. I mean, people who live in Mississauga, Ontario is not so bad. They're probably not going very far in their vehicles or whatever it is. But if you're going out to what the majority of people call the boonies, outside in the small places, and they want to go hunting or something, these vehicles right now are not practical. And plus, if everybody start charging electric vehicles, I don't think they can make enough. I don't think a hydro thing we got in Newfoundland can actually manage to charge all these vehicles.
It's very much a spec industry still. The targets are in place now, and the effort is there. The federal government is going gung-ho on this, and they're moving to that point where we don't have, again, it's all about lack of reliance on the U.S. It's all about, we're not going to be shipping these vehicles to the U.S. They're going to be shipping them overseas. And, it's a bigger domino effect, and the right steps have to be put in place. And I think they've made that start, at least in signal. This is the way we're going. It's going to be on a slower pace than it would have been under the Trudeau government, and it removes the carbon tax and all that stuff. Anthony, look, only because of the time on the clock, I got two callers there who really want to just get one quick say in.
The thing is that I personally think this hydro project they got at Muskrat Falls should be a national project. And than having, we're one country, Canada, and I think, maybe I think Newfoundland should get something out of it. But I think it should be a national project. We cannot afford to do this project to make it better. And the whole thing with Quebec is anyway. I don't.
There you go. Look,
I would have more time to talk to you.
Great last point, Anthony. Look, I'm really sorry about the short time, but look, we've got all next week. So if you find the time, give us a shout back, and we can delve a little bit more into it. Thanks so much for the call today. Quick, let's see. Line number 2, Mike Keogh, you're on the air.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much. I know you're on very short time there.
I'm really sorry about that, but give her.
Yeah, that's okay. Just a brief comment on the NMCA for the South Coast. I want to compliment the Premier for his action in withdrawing support for the MOU down there. I listened to your caller yesterday, former Mayor of Burgeo, and all the work he did in 25 years, and all the times had the rug pulled from underneath him after being led along so many times. Well, I have a lot of experience and have kept up on this. Brian, this is a con job of immense proportions. The NMCA is being used for two purposes: to meet Canada's commitment under the 30-30, or what that is, the federal commitment for Mr. Guilbeault and Mr. Trudeau. And secondly, they will take this conservation area, and they've already structured it to be under the management control of bands, of Aboriginal bands. And like up north, the local people will not just walk in to be able to go fishing or all kinds of stuff. They will now until they don't, until they're out. And when the bands take it over, this will be part of Canada's reconciliation action with the bands. So I know you don't have enough time. Maybe I'll get a chance to detail that in more next week.
Oh, we're all here next week, Mike. I would welcome it. Please do. Thanks so much for understanding.
All the very best.
Awesome.
Bye now.
Great. Have a great weekend. All right, that's Mike. And last caller of the week. Let's go right to line number 3. Gail, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Listen, this is a bit friendly hack, okay?
Yeah.
I always tape the men's, say, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, right, for the tennis.
Right.
And last Thursday, I've been debating all week, but this is totally in friendly nature here.
Sure.
Last Thursday night, I had the Australian Open, the men's semifinals matches taped, and I happened to tune you in on Friday. Now, this is when I had my snacks and my drink.
Oh, no. Listen, I got burned on that, too. I got burned that.
And I was so excited when I got home Friday night with my chips, my dip, everything was all outlined. I was vibed on it, right? And I happened to tune you in, and you said, oh, what a match it's going to be on Sunday, Alcaraz and Djokovic. And it's like, no, Brian, don't do me like that. No.
Look,
it was like, no. So I tried to denial all day.
Yeah.
Even though I knew in the back of my head that, you did say who won. But anyway, whatever, I still watched the matches and enjoyed them, even though I knew who was going to win. But that's okay. It's just a little friendly dig and a bit of fun, because I adore tennis. I always have.
Totally get it.
And
Yep.
yeah.
All right, Gail. Well, look, I'll be wary and mindful of you next time that there's something on the other side of the world.
Yeah, all in good fun.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You're welcome. You too. Thanks.
Okay, take care. Okay, one last quick note. Lost puppy found near Vancouver Street. Got to get this one in. 3 to 4 pounds in size. White, brown, breed unknown, but whitish, brownish in the Vancouver Street area of St. John's. Hoping the rightful owner can call VOCM. We can pass out that number. The number here, you can call the 273-5211 number. But anyone at VOCM, you'll be able to get us. Lost puppy found near Vancouver Street. Someone's got him. If you're missing one, give us a shout. Thanks, everyone, for being so understanding, and quite a challenge this show can always be. I appreciate all the callers and all the listeners. Thank you very much. All I can tell you for this weekend, please join me next week, and that means you drove safely, you arrived alive, and VOCM cares.